Teaching women to step into their feminine energy, isn't this just propping up the patriarchy? No, it's not, and here's why. The patriarchy is not just a bunch of old white men ruling the world. Women feed into the patriarchy too, and we feed into the patriarchy by trying to be like men, by trying to be masculine. We actually smash the patriarchy by being soft and feminine and connected to our hearts and our bodies, because guess what? Then we're connected to our intuition. Then we know what's going on in the world. There's a lot to be angry about. But when we're in our heart and we're compassionate, that fire that fuels us to create change comes from a very different vibration. We can't create change with the same vibration that created it. Being in our hearts benefits the world. It benefits the world because we're able to create that change. Hey everyone, welcome back. It's been a while since I've created some new content for you. I apologize. Here we are. What we're going to talk about today is how to go from your head to your heart. This is something that I hear pretty consistently from my clients. It's about getting out of your head and getting into your heart. And I thought, why don't I make a video about it so you understand what that's all about and how you can do that. So I'm going to do 3 things for you today. I'm going to explain what is it to be in your heart? What does that even mean? Why is it important? And then how do you do it? And I'm going to offer you 3 tips as to how you can get into your heart. And there's also a bonus tip at the end, so stick around for that. What is it to be in your heart? What does it even mean? So it's this real tenderness that you feel, this real empathy, this compassion, this sense of love. It's a softness, it's a softening and a deepening. It's good old feminine energy, really, is what it is. And it does apply to men and women, but I'll focus on women today because women are the people I usually work with. Being in your heart is being really connected to your needs, being connected to your body, being connected to the earth, being connected to the animals and the plight of them and what's going on. It's also an absence of reactivity. It's an ability to see both sides of things and understand other people. And it is really this feeling of softness. And how you can tell someone's in it is there's a softness and a tenderness, and there's a radiance that comes with being in your heart. The heart and the inner child are sometimes used interchangeably. And it's because they're connected, and I'll get to that in a second. That's actually one of our tips. And it's something that is important because of this. There are 2 reasons actually, and the first one is to do with you and the other is to do with the world. So why is it important for you to be in your heart? Well, if you want to attract a partner and have a beautiful relationship romantically, and or have great relationships in every other area of your life, being in your heart is the fastest way there. It's the fastest way there. It's the safest place to be. Also, side note, caveat, being in your heart doesn't make you weak. We think this softness and this vulnerability is going to make us somehow weak or vulnerable to attack or something, and that's not the case. It's actually a place where you're able to lean back and receive and enjoy and be really present, and that's a beautiful thing. So it's not something that is in any way dangerous. So what just happened there? There is a sailboat that just went past. I'm just gonna scoot up a bit so I don't get the waves on me. Although I'm going in a second, so I really don't suppose it matters. Yes, the 2 reasons why it's important. One is it's important for your relationships with other people. This tenderness and this softness and this radiance will attract a really strong masculine partner who will want to be there for you, to step in, step up and support you. Another caveat, I can hear the feminists now, and I've heard this before. I heard at a workshop once, teaching women to step into their feminine energy, isn't this just propping up the patriarchy? And I said, no, it's not, and here's why. So the patriarchy is not just a bunch of old white men ruling the world, which is part of it, admittedly, but women feed into the patriarchy too, and we feed into the patriarchy by trying to be like men, by trying to be masculine. We actually smash the patriarchy by being soft and feminine and connected to our hearts and our bodies, because guess what? Then we're connected to our intuition. Then we know what's going on in the world, right? And being in our heart is not a weakness. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to float around and be loving to everyone. It's also, love sometimes says no, and love sometimes says this isn't okay and we're going to change this. right? But it comes from a place of deep change. It was Marianne Williamson that said, anger is the white sugar of activism. And I really, really love that. It really is. And I think that's very, very potent and powerful at this time. There's a lot to be angry about. But when we're in our heart and we're compassionate, that fire that fuels us to create change comes from a very different vibration, and we can create change at that vibration. We can't create change with the same vibration that created it. So that alludes to point number 2, which is that being in our hearts benefits the world. It benefits the world because we're able to create that change. We don't create a more loving world by hating other people. We don't create a more loving world by fighting with people on Twitter. And I have been guilty of it. You will have noticed in the thumbnail, it was 2016 versus 2020. Cheryl in 2016 was a very different woman, let me tell you. I also feel like in the past 4 years I've gone from girl to woman, and I think that happens somewhere in your early 30s where you step into your womanhood, and that has a lot to do with your heart as well. 2016 was a time when I would very willingly fight with people on the internet. I would very willingly cause a lot of pain because I was emotionally reactive. And I look back on that former version of myself with a lot of empathy and kindness, because she did what she could, and she made some mistakes, but I know better now and I do better now. It's so easy to think that because we believe a certain thing that it justifies us warring with words on the internet, and all that does is create more friction and more tension. And I think when we can start to understand other people, it starts to bring us together. And there's also, this is a complete side note and a tangent, but an important one. What's happening at the moment is we're creating a new earth. And there's this split that's happening between the people that want to fight and want to stay attached to all of the pain and the suffering, and there's those that want to actually create lasting, sustainable change. The people that are creating lasting, sustainable change, by the way, it doesn't mean we're going to bypass what's going on. There's been some bad shit that's going on, but to make it right, we have to come from that more loving perspective, right? Rather than coming from the energy that created it in the first place. I know with what's going on in the world with politics, which is a bit of a storm, how appropriate that the waters got wild. I know it's really easy to look at the other political party and think that they're wrong, but really all that does is create more divide and more friction. So we know what it is to be in your heart. We know why it's important for ourselves and the world. So how do we do it? The first thing that we do is we heal our childhood wounds. This is important because, as the Rumi quote goes, your task is not to seek for love, your task is to remove all the barriers that you've built against it. And the barriers is the trauma, the pain, the old patterns. We're not born thinking we're unworthy of love. We're not born wanting to fight other people. We're born pretty neutral. Robert Holden calls that the unconditioned self, which is so brilliant. And we learn things. We learn things about our own lovability and our own willingness to be in relationship with others, and we build up this armor, we build up this scar tissue around our wounds, and that scar tissue we think protects us, but it doesn't. It just builds a barrier to other people. So when we're able to go back and heal our childhood wounds, we're removing all this stuff that's in the way. We're removing all this armor and scar tissue and stuff that's in the way of our heart. So it's really important to go back and look at what hurt me when I was a kid, what impact has that had on me, and how do I heal that? And how do we actually do that? How do we actually clear all the stuff that happened in childhood? Coaching, counselling, all kinds of different ways, all kinds of different modalities, somatic healing. I mean, there's a plethora of different ways. And I have a bunch of courses. There's a beautiful inner child meditation that I have that will really help you with that. The details are down below. There's lots of different ways. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. You know what the best healing modality is going to be for you. Step 2 to being in your heart is to nurture yourself. And we do this really simply. And I know we've done this before, but we're going to do it again until we all are fully in our hearts. We're going to close our eyes. We're going to take a deep breath in. We're going to hold and let go. Another deep breath in. Holding. Let it go. Hold at the bottom. Breathing in, holding, let it go, and hold. Breathe normally now. Placing your right hand on your heart and your left hand on your abdomen. And just ask yourself, how do I feel? What do I need? how can I give that to myself? Sitting with those answers, hearing those answers, breathing in, letting go. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. I know I run through that super quick. We've done this a lot of times before, so I didn't want to labor the point, but in that quick example, and you can do that anywhere. I mean, you might not want to do it on the bus or the train, you know, but you can do it quietly when you have a moment to yourself. Just check in and ask yourself, how am I feeling? What do I need? And how can I give that to myself? And you'll find a very clear answer. So what we're doing there is we're connecting back to our own needs, and that's really important because that nurtures us. It nurtures our heart. It nurtures our inner child. It connects us to our emotional world, and of course that connects us more deeply to our heart. The third way we can get into our heart, there's been a bit of a clue throughout, which is get in nature. Why is it important to get in nature? Because it connects you to your body and it connects you to the earth, and that gets you in your heart as well. Being a somewhat wild woman these days and getting in the lake and getting out in nature has connected me to my body and to the earth and to my heart in a way that nothing else has. I have friends who are saying to me, what is it you're doing? What are you doing differently? And it's this, it's wild swimming. Now, caveat, we're not going to go jumping arbitrarily into random cold bodies of water. That's not what we're going to do. But some ways that you can warm up to that is I started with cold showers. There's actually a video on this, which is linked in the eye up above. I started doing the Wim Hof method. I started doing cold showers, and gradually I built up to going out in cold water in the wild. I went out with a group at first. I'm on my own today, but I have my tow float and safety equipment, so please don't arbitrarily jump in random bodies of water. That's not safe. But I built up to it in a way, and before I go into the water, I prepare my breath, I do the breathing exercises and all of that. So there was a gradual one cold water exposure, so I did it gradually over time, exposing myself to submersing myself in cold water. And the second thing I do is I prepare myself to go into the water too, and I take safety precautions too. So there are other ways to get out in nature though. It doesn't have to be wild swimming. It can be going to a park, sitting in the garden. If you don't have access to that and you're in the city and maybe you're locked down and whatever else is going on, listen to naturescapes on Spotify or YouTube. Just type in something like nature soundtrack or soundtrack of thunderstorm or soundtrack of rain, and that will connect you to nature in that way. It really gets us out of our heads when we get out into nature, and we're very, very present. And when we're present, we can feel, and when we can feel, we're in our hearts. All right, if you've stayed to the end, then you get the bonus tip. So the other way that we can really connect to our hearts is to connect to our soul. And again, I know that sounds really, really intangible, but it's really, really not. We can connect to our soul in a number of ways. But really what it is, when we connect to our soul, is we connect to that infinite and ancient part of us. I'm just fiddling with like an acorn on the ground right now. When we connect to that ancient and infinite part of us, it's easy to love ourselves. It's easy to be in our heart because we're connected to a part of us that is eternal, and that is the soul. Now, that's going to depend on some of your belief systems. You might be a follower of a strong faith. Perhaps you're Christian, perhaps you're Muslim, perhaps you're kind of spiritual, new age, or it could be a mixture of all those things. And whatever that is, across all different, there's a cross section across all different belief systems that is about the soul. So whatever that means for you, then you can interpret that. For me, stepping into my soul looked like a number of things. There was a twin flame situation. There was a dark night of the soul situation, which is documented fully on my YouTube machine, which you can go and watch if you desire. And I also did a lot of past life regressions. I also got really into astrology and got connected to my birth chart and understood like why I'm here and what it is I'm meant to do, which by the way is relationships and teaching on the feminine and entrepreneurship and writing. And I've got a Leo midheaven, which is all about production and media and all of this, right? So checking all the boxes, doing my soul's work. And you know you're doing your soul's work, and you know you're connected to your soul because it's what you want to do. That's really the clue. Connecting to your soul is actually connecting to your deepest desires. It's connecting to what you desire the most. And it's going to be random, and it's going to be specific, and it's going to be I don't know, getting a custom made Wonder Woman costume and going to San Diego Comic Con with your best friend dressed as Storm from the X-Men. Not talking about myself at all here. I am. It's going to be really specific to you. And the reason I mentioned that example is it couples so many different things that I love, which is the arts, it's spirituality, it's fun, it's play, it's dress up, it's fucking awesome, right? It's nerdy. That also really nurtures my inner child, because when I was a kid, being nerdy was like not cool, not okay, and now I embrace it. So yeah, connecting to your soul is really connecting to what you desire and what you really long for and crave for. And you can do past life regressions. There's a ton on here if you're getting into past life stuff. Brian Weiss is the granddaddy of past lives. Atasha Fife is also really good. I know I'm like name dropping to the wazoo here, but I really want to give you some resources. I'm also going to create a book resource on my website. One of my clients recently said that I should do that, because I do give book recommendations as like homework when you work with me. I'm a big book lover, and all my clients are introverts, so we're all about staying in, reading the books, and getting out in nature when we can. So connecting to your soul is really important. All right, let's recap. Let's see if I can remember what I just said to you. So what is it to be in your heart? It's connecting to that really soft, tender place. It's feeling that inner radiance and letting it shine. It's being in your feminine energy. It's allowing and receiving and allowing in. Why is it important? Well, it's important for you. It deepens your relationships with yourself and with others. Why is it important for the world? Because the world's on fire right now, figuratively and literally, and our heart is needed more than ever before. How do we step into our heart? We heal our childhood wounds. We nurture ourselves and connect to our needs, and then we get out in nature, which connects us to our body and to the earth. And then the bonus tip was connecting to your soul, which is connecting to what it is you really desire, giving yourself that, doing the odd past life regression or two, and really understanding why you're here and what your soul's work is. I really hope this felt like a warm hug and nourishment. I'm going to get in this lake now. There will be evidence. I'm going to connect to the earth, and yeah, I've been sitting on the ground this whole time. Grounding is really good. Grounding is really good. Lie down on the ground, even if you can't get outside or you don't want to get out in public and lie on the ground because you don't have a garden or whatnot. That's okay. You can just literally lie on the ground in your room, in your living room. Just lie yourself down on the ground, ground yourself into the earth, and you can imagine roots growing out into the earth. That can be really beautiful as well. And in most of my meditations, I start with like a grounding exercise too. Okay, that's everything. If you like the cut of my jib, then subscribe, like, leave me a comment below, let me know what you took away from this. And I'm gonna go jump in this body of water now. Sending you tons of love, and I'll see you next time.